have lost track of you. We heard about you when you was coming out of high school, but we didn't know where you was at. But
okay,
so I kind of made a name for myself there, and just pushed through.
Gotcha. So now you got the invite and you decided which team did you decide on at the pro level?
I decided Atlanta Falcons because that's the team that I thought that I had the most opportunity to make. So I went down there and I was doing pretty good. Was working very hard. I was probably one of the best guys that was there. But right before the season started, in practice, I kind of was running, and then I tried to cut, and all of a sudden, blew up my knee. But it was a tough time. Went through a little depression.
Gotcha.
Because just to know that.
Yeah.
It was hard to handle just the fact that it was an injury, and so I wasn't good enough to make the team. I think I would have accepted it a lot better. But I say things happen, and I thought because David at that time I was getting a lot of calls from coaches. I got coaches from the Raiders who came by and said, hey, you want to get healthy? We want to bring you out, and but then my doctor told me, it was not a good idea for me to ever play football again if I planned on doing it. So I've ended up with 9 knee surgeries on the same knee. So
my goodness.
It's never gotten right. So so I actually eventually it was I had to walk away from it, but I just had to find the love and the passion in something else that that would bring me the joy of
being around the game. Okay.
Around the game, yeah.
Okay, and so that eventually led you to I'll say creating and running your own company, which is API Fitness, where you are, according to what I'm able to research and put together, you do train and prepare top level athletes to go to the next level in various sports disciplines. So tell us a little bit about API Fitness.
So API Fitness was started by one of my first NFL players. His name is Byron Bell. He's actually still in the NFL. He plays for the Green Bay Packers. Last year he was with the Cowboys. So what happened? Even before that, I actually got hired as a assistant coach at University of New Mexico, where it was a Division I program there. With Coach Mike Loxley, also who's the offensive coordinator at University of Alabama right now. So he was the head coach there. He brought me over there, to help build the program. So I got to meet some of the kids and a lot of the kids, and even back in high school, in college, I was also interested in doing a lot of sports training and personal training. So I've got the knowledge, and been training for a little while. So he's one of the kids that he actually went to his agent sent him to this other trainers to go train, and he actually didn't perform well because he was also ranked as in a draft, but he didn't perform well, so his draft stock dropped. So he came back and he called me and said, "Hey, coach, I know how good you are of a trainer. So if you can help me out." So, he came and trained with me, I trained him, and he was, the coach from the Carolina Panthers came in. They watched this and, oh my God, Al, one of the coaches that was there was Ray Rubin. I don't know if you know him. He played for the Redskins, and he was a assistant head coach.
Yes.
All for the training, I trained this kid for a month. He went from 360 to 330. Moving, and then the draft just stopped going back up. And the Carolina Panthers actually wanted to hire me that year to come coach, come train the NFL team.
Right.
But that's the year they had the lockout.
Okay.
So, so they ended up having the lockout. I had left New Mexico actually. Was going to go down there to Carolina to work. But so so I came home and I was like, what? If I have this talent, and there's a lot of kids that's need it, why don't I start something? And the guy hit me and he said, "Al, you need to start our Performance Institute, API." So he made, he started it. So he was one of the guys, and then I had other guys from Robert Griffin from Redskins. I worked with him. I worked with Kirk Cousins. I worked with a bunch of NFL guys, and so these guys, I got in contact with their agents, and the agents said, "You know what? I think we need to start sending guys to you to train." So basically, what I do now, also in December, is any guy that is eligible for the NFL draft, is basically all the senior. You know, they go to camps where they train to go to the NFL Combine. So based on the Combine is where you really make your money. So you want to be your fastest, you want to be your strongest, you want to perform at the Combine determines where you get drafted and what type of signing bonus and things like that. So I've built up a little reputation that some of the the NFL GMs and some of the the agents knows. They said, hey, if you want your guy to to move up in the draft, you might want to send him down to API where he definitely can get him prepared. So so that I do that in December once the college season is over to train these guys to the next level. But I also train college athletes. So all the athletes in the Washington D.C. area, when they come home from whether it's USC, Ohio State, the quarterback at Ohio State is one of my guys.
Okay.
I have guys at Wisconsin. I have guys at Duke. So I have guys everywhere all over the country that are from this area. Sometimes they'll if the parent they'll send them down here to train for the summer. Before they college, or if the guys that have they have dreams of playing in the NFL.
NFL.
So I also use that that platform to mentor some of the younger kids in the area, especially in DC, who are in need of mentoring. Right. And and some of the NFL guys help me with them, so they develop that bond. And also, it's also a goal of mine where I want kids to be able to match up with NFL guys or NBA guys. Also, another thing, I also work with NBA guys. For Malcolm Brogdon from the Milwaukee Bucks. He was a year ago. He was Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year. Yes.
Yeah, I work with him. I work with him with the Rainers. So I work with I don't remember Dale Stolberry, his son, who played at the University of Maryland.
Right.
Went to the Phoenix Suns.
Right.
So I do that. Like I said, and then so I have the opportunity to work with a lot of these guys, but the thing that I look for and what I do is joy, and and I really want to help build Sierra Leone national teams. I don't care if it's track. I really want to help put us on the map. And for me, the thing is, I want to make history. I'm not gonna lie to you. That's what motivates me.
Gotcha.
I'm not motivated by the money because I get paid now very well to do what I do, but I want to be a part of Sierra Leone history because that's what I'm tied into. That's what's running in my veins. My veins is Sierra Leone to heart. And every time I go there, the first thing they say, this boy's not, he's not a just come on American boy. This boy is Sierra Leone because I embrace Sierra Leone.
Gotcha.
Because that's what's in me. So so my future, I'm looking forward to working with even if it's a national team, like we had the conversation yesterday. I don't mind doing that, going there to train our soccer team and
gotcha.
That so I'm
okay.
So that's what's really motivating me right now.
Okay, so now you're giving a very good background to who you are, what you are. You're a trainer to the pros, and you are a mentor. You advise folks, and you're deeply into the sports life, the sports business. And what we do here is to give a platform or to give exposure to the folks that we feel are relevant to the growth of sports in Africa or amongst people of African descent in the diaspora. So I'm really thrilled to have you on. But at the beginning of this whole thing, you mentioned something which was the need for African parents living in the diaspora for them to understand. And I think also that it's not just parents of African folks of African descent in the diaspora. They need to understand. I think people on the continent in Africa also need to understand the value of sports and what it means and how that is life changing. How that it can not only change your individual life perspective, but also it can transform the community as a whole if sports is embraced and looked at as something that is productive at various levels, from a health perspective, from an economic perspective, and so on and so forth. So we have a mission to try to make people understand and accept and embrace the value of sports. You have identified that as an issue. And last week I had a great podcast program where I had some folks who are called thought leaders in the sports business, and we talked about the business of sports. And one of the things that we talked about was culture, the culture of sports, how the culture of sports is lacking in the African community, both at home and in overseas. And until we embrace sports as a culture and as a way of life, before we can start to understand the value of what it truly means. So that would be the sell that we have to, the thing that we have to put out there. We have to push out there. Both me and you and everybody else that's involved in the sports business. So that's one part of it, because once you understand the value of what you're doing, then the other issues like understanding what the NCAA needs for an athlete to make it to that next level in terms of sports scores, your scores, your SAT and ACT scores for you to be accepted at the Division I program. I think that becomes natural instead of people trying to, grope in the dark and trying to find out what you truly need. Because at the end of the day, like you said, that was very vital. It was very important for you to have made it to the next level, even though you did make it to that next level, to a very high level. But your level of attainment is God has put you in a position to be of value to so many people out there. So I feel like you have a lot to offer, and just to be able to educate folks out there about the value of sports and what it means. I think you basically identify some really key issues there, and the fact that you want to contribute to Sierra Leone, where you were born, and but the fact that even though you're an American now, you're here, you live here, and you don't even sound Sierra Leone. I'm just saying. I mean, what I mean by that, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying when I say you don't sound, maybe you're very Americanized. That's what I mean by that. Not to say that being Sierra Leone is anything negative, but I appreciate that, and I think I respect that. Not even think I respect that very highly. Because that is what you do when you go out, you get educated, or you attain some skills, or you attain some knowledge, you give back. You turn around and give back, and I really applaud you. I've seen what you do. We interact at a certain level, and I really appreciate what you do out there. So before we go, what is your advice to, one, African parents, two, young and upcoming athletes here in the diaspora, not just kids of African descent, but just athletes in general? What is your advice for those two categories of people?
For the parents, the first thing I want to say is, support your kids. It's the best way to even foster a relationship. And you'll be through sports. You'll be able to communicate better. You know what's going on in your children's lives, because a lot of time, we don't know what's going on in our kids' lives, and they even go through depression. They're going through a lot of stuff you don't know. Support your kids. It's the best thing that you can do to foster that relationship. Let them know that they have somebody that's there for them. Let them know that they have somebody that's there for them. And a lot of times, growing up, we didn't have our parents at our event. We didn't have our parents, you look in the stands, you didn't see your parents in the stands, because they didn't understand. They just thought sports, it's just something that you do, it's just something. No, sports is real. Mm-hmm. If you look at a day like Sunday, Sunday, in America, football season, Sunday's not a church day. Sunday is football day.
Yes.
So, it's a $1 billion business. You have kids that are going to school, with $75,000 a year education that are going there for free, because sports is just as important as education.
Right.
Sports builds character. Mm-hmm. We as parents, as Africans, have to understand that sports, as much as education is just as much as sports is.
Yes.
You have to have the both. When I work, I have tons of kids that are going to Ivy League schools, and that's what I always tell a lot of parents that go look at Yale and see how much Yale spend on that facility every year, and that sports facility. Look at Harvard. I have 3 kids at Harvard. They understand that it helps you be a well-rounded individual.
Yes.
So parents understand it, and talk to somebody, talk to coaches, talk to NCAA, understand that how, what it takes, what the requirements are for them to be eligible.